Hello and welcome to Overtime Hockey Talk, your off-season editions here of the OTHT. Yeah, OTHT. Why don't we call it that, Justin?
That's a good question.
OTHT. Overtime Hockey Talk. We are enjoying our summer, I'll say.
Yeah, I don't. It's been pretty muggy out. I will say that.
It has
don't
been.
like it, but
Definitely not good for hockey.
No.
My ice rink is very
melted.
It's a pond in my backyard. So co-host Justin Baker. Sorry, I forgot to toss you in there. But today on the show, because there's just so much action happening, I think that on like maybe once a day, once every other day, Elliot Friedman's tweeting things, and I'm wondering if it's just like an intern back at the CBC studios or something, or
probably
Sportsnet, whatever, and he's like, all right, if anybody texts you, just feel free to tweet it out because he's done. No, it's so easy for him to tweet out, it's kind of cool. Now it's just easy for a guy to tweet a couple things out here and there throughout the summer, but of course he's just been tweeting things about arbitration and
it's nice that my Twitter feed isn't blowing up with Mitch Marner crap every other.
Yeah, that's kind of taken a little bit of a pause. With that, what we want to do, we're going to talk two things. We're going to talk best remaining RFA, UFA stuff, maybe more on the unrestricted because there's a few more possibilities as to where they can go. We'll, of course, talk some Patrick Laine because there's been a lot of play with him. And then we're going to get to fixing the NHL. In our estimation, the NHL is broken. And don't worry, we're here to fix it. We will repair the NHL. If they just listen to this damn show, the NHL would be so much better. And some of it'll be CBA related, some of it'll just be on ice related, but we'll have some fun with that. So let's just jump right into the RFAs because I'll just throw out the names of the significant RFAs that are still yet to sign. There's Brock Besser, who, as far as we know, there's been no negotiations the last we heard. They haven't even started negotiations, as far as we've heard. Kyle Connor, Patrick Laine, Mitch Marner, Braden Point, Mikko Rantanen, Matthew Tkachuk, Charlie McAvoy, Ivan Provorov, Jacob Trouba, Zach Werenski, and then we'll toss David Rittich, goaltender for Calgary, as we like to call him, David Ritchie. And
I'm glad you remembered.
Yes. There's other guys, too. There's Will Butcher, Pavel Buchnevich, and Joel Edmondson. There's some other good players. As my estimation, right now, you could make maybe one of the best teams in the NHL just with the RFAs that aren't signed. And then sprinkle in Patrick Marleau and Joe Thornton, and you'll be all set.
Dude, love it.
Out of those names, are there any names that are jumping out at you that you think are going to move? Those are the only ones I care about. You don't like Brock Besser. I don't think he's going anywhere.
He doesn't. You can't even offer sheet Brock Besser, so teams can't do that with him because he hasn't played enough games. So
really?
Yeah, so he can't go anywhere. He can't sign offer sheets
because he played in the AHL.
Right, something like that. I can't remember exactly what it was, but
no, because he was hurt his first year.
Maybe it was that.
So he's just not. But he's still probably looking for the same. Like he's going to look at what's Patrick Laine getting? I want the same.
Oh, sure.
He's just waiting for comps.
I don't know if he wants... Yeah, he's waiting for comps for sure, but I don't know if he's going to... he's definitely not going to get the same as Patrick Laine because, to me, he's the most interesting name on the RFA market left. So you look at... You got guys like Mitch Marner, obviously, Rantanen, who are the big names that we know, the guys that have put up a ton of points. But for me, Laine's the most interesting because while he's still a capable guy who could put up 40 goals any season, he's just so wildly inconsistent and maybe puts up 10 assists a year that, from what I've heard, he's demanding close to $10 million a season. And while the goal total may be there for that kind of money, but the point total itself is like, really? I scratch my head like, why would you want that kind of money? And if I'm Winnipeg, I'm hoping somebody offer sheets him and you okay, give me 3 first-round draft pick or whatever the compensation is.
Yeah, because if he's not willing to sign an offer sheet like Sebastian Aho.
Right.
And see, he's also got to be thinking, I want to sign... my thought is that he's going to want an 8-year.
I imagine he would.
Because he's had some inconsistencies. You get that 8 years, even if you end up pulling an Alexander Daig, you're all set for 8 years. You'll probably make close to $70 million over those.
Oh, easy, yeah.
If you get if you got 8.5 or so, you can be at about $70 million. So, he's Do you think that someone is going to offer sheet him, though? There's been a lot of Montreal talk, and it just doesn't look like, I think that most of that is just based on the fact that they've already done one.
Yeah, I think if they're looking to offer sheet anybody, they're going to wait till maybe, like, for instance, Toronto, right? They're kind of tied up against the cap, and so you're looking for maybe a team that, like, I guess Laine could get offer sheeted, but it would have to be in a situation where, they've already signed Kyle Connor to a deal, right? And now they're crunched for cap space. Right, they don't have it. So it's like, oh, we can go in and soup this guy for, whatever, how much money. But, like, for instance, when you look at a guy like Rantanen or, Braden Point, really, I don't maybe necessarily worry about those guys as much because I know Tampa's going to move some guys around, and Colorado's got a ton of cap space left anyway, so they'll get those guys signed.
Yeah, and I think that what some teams are like with Laine, I think you're going to go, if you look at the Jets and you go, all right, they can't afford both Connor and Laine. All right, let's just say that that's the case, or that's their feeling. I think you're in a better position to trade for Laine than you are to offer sheet him, because the offer sheet is just too. It's very rigid. Like, you are giving up first round picks. There's no, like, you can negotiate what you end up giving up. So a trade seems to be more likely because you probably need to shed a little bit of cap space, which, you're probably looking at a second line guy going the other way if you're getting Laine, along with maybe a first round pick and a third round pick, as opposed to, something you got to think it's going to be less than what San Jose gave up for Carlson.
I would think so.
So you're looking at like a first round pick, a top 6 forward, and a prospect, maybe like a mid grade prospect or a third round
guy
pick.
Who's wildly inconsistent. I wouldn't give that up. So, and then here's the other thing too.
Yes, but do you think that you can grab that guy and turn him in? Like, we saw him score 40 goals.
Sure,
right?
Yeah, and maybe if you're on a team who's been very hard pressed to score goals, like for instance, Arizona, they went out and got Phil Kessel because they just don't score goals.
But they just can't afford to give up. They can't afford to give up somebody else who.
Well, no. I don't think. I'm just using him as an example of a team like them that needed goal scoring that badly. So. Another thing with Patrick Laine is when it comes to an offer sheet, like Sebastian Aho was a special case because you had a team that had their internal salary that maybe you were looking to take advantage of that by front loading that bonus money, right? I don't think any of these teams with these big names left are sitting there worrying about money. They're going to go out and just sign it. So you have to sign Patrick Laine to a ridiculous like $10-11 million, and at that point you're touching that 4 first-round draft pick.
Yeah, you're not going to do it.
You're not going to give that up for Patrick Laine, who while he gives you the goals, you're not getting anything else from him. I'd rather go out and try to offer sheet Kyle Connor, who has been a fantastic top-line guy who has been very consistent with his production.
Yeah, why not offer sheet a Brock Besser, who I think you could probably get for around 8.5.
Yeah, but
offer sheet him for 5 years.
Well, you can't offer sheet Brock Besser.
Oh, you're right. Yeah. And you know why? It's because he played fewer than 10 games his first NHL season.
Oh, there you go.
That's why. Kyle Connor, you could give him probably a similar to Sebastian Aho. And if you gave him that, and for 5 years, you would only give up first, second, third. Definitely worth it for Kyle Connor. Also, though, if Winnipeg decides to match, Kyle Connor will be a free agent in 5 years. So you can go get him. Like, if he's interested in signing with you now, he'll probably be interested in signing with you in 5 years. These could be some preemptive strikes, which I think Aho was a little bit. Like, they went, all right, hey, we'll sign you, and, he wants to be here maybe in 5 years when he's a free agent, which isn't that far away, when all things considered, as opposed to signing a 7 or an 8. 5 years away, the guy's, 26? Aho?
Yeah.
26 years old at a UFA.
Yeah.
So, I think there is maybe something to look at and just go, let's just offer sheet these guys, go in, get them as much, and then if somebody accepts it, great. We'll take any of these players for a first, second, and a third round pick. And if not, then that player will become a free agent in 3 years. But I don't know if, I think Point would sign for less than 8.5. I think Rantanen might. Kachuk might. McAvoy would. You could get McAvoy.
Yeah, he'll.
8.5.
Yeah, I think McAvoy you definitely could get at 8.5.
He's also ineligible for an offer sheet.
Right.
Which is why he hasn't signed, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
Might
I
as
mean,
well hold
all the
out.
leverage is in Boston's hand, and I think, they're trying to lowball him, which, I mean, rightfully so, most GMs would.
Just take a 1-year deal, and then you got your or 2 years.
Then you can offer sheet.
Yeah, or you get arbitration. Okay, let's go UFAs. UFAs, a little bit more play here. Justin Williams, Carolina Hurricanes. We know he might bag at this point. Kind of not a lot happening other than we know that he may be back. He may not. I think he'll be back. I
do
feel like
too.
he's going to be tempted to come back. This should be a pretty decent team next year. Patrick Marleau has kind of said he only wants to go to San Jose. Probably the same goes for Joe Thornton. Does San Jose sign one, both, or none of them?
I think both. I think they're going to try to get him on like 1-and-1s. Just, hey, here's, because they're cash strapped.
Why
so.
wouldn't you?
No, absolutely not. Why wouldn't you?
You just go 1-and-1s and you go, all right, guys, look. Now, I could see Marleau signing a tryout contract.
a tryout.
I think he might.
Really?
Maybe.
Interesting.
You think you would?
I don't know.
As
I don't think
said
so.
it sounded more ridiculous after I said it.
No, he wouldn't.
I mean, a 1-and-1, though, I think you could probably come to some sort of agreement where, like, if it really wasn't working out,
Just put a bunch of bonuses in
and
there.
you just
and-
go, hey, we're going to probably send you down. And he goes, okay, well, I'll just retire.
I still think even with both of those guys,
He's a good player. I mean,
yeah,
he's a
they're
good
still capable.
for especially for being a fourth line guy. You could also put Pat. I don't think you'd want to put them together. That'd be a dreadfully slow line.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Well, Marlowe's still got a little.
You
bit
got
of
like
speed,
78 speed if you were playing.
Oh,
him
goodness.
on, NHL. Just very slow. Probably the best UFA available is Jake Gardner. Jake Gardner. I mean, he did miss 20 games last year, but still had a real nice season. He's consistently a guy who can put up 40 points, capable of probably 50 in the right scenario season. And I think that he wants not quite John Carlson money, maybe that $7 million. And my assumption is he's not finding it. And now what does he do? Where does he sign? Or the offers he's gotten are from teams he doesn't want to go to.
It's going to be a situation where he's going to end up signing a 1-year prove-it deal like that. Hey, all these sweet forwards you're playing with weren't really the reason why you had this decent offensive production. So come over here. Here's 1-year contract, maybe $4 or $5 million, and show me that you can do it.
Yeah, but he's been producing offensively long before these other guys started coming in. I mean, he had 30 points this last year, 52, 43, 31. So he's still been a good defenseman.
No, I'm not disagreeing with you. I still think he's a fine defenseman, and I think a second pairing guy. But I think most teams are just going to be like
second pairing guy, or you could drop him like he's a left-handed defenseman, right? So
Sure.
You could drop him in with a guy like, let's look at St. Louis. Drop him in with Colton Parayko, and suddenly he could play on that top pairing if he's with somebody who he can play with.
is very responsible.
And just like top six forwards, a lot of times we look at them and it's like there's no first line.
Right.
It's just the top six. Like that's how it is for defensemen. I think there's a top four and then you've got your bottom pairing. 'Cause
Ideally, that's what you want.
Yeah, usually you've got a couple guys that play 23 to 25 minutes, 21 to 23, and then the other guys are playing 15, 14. Maybe there's one guy who's playing 11 if you can.
Oh, goodness.
If you need him to. What do you think that he ultimately signs for? Because I don't think a prove-it deal is what he's going to sign.
Well, I don't think he wants that, but I think as summer rolls on, the offers are going to dry up. And I think right now it's probably a situation, like you said, where he wants too much money, maybe too much term, because he is, 29 years old, 28.
28.
Okay, yeah. So, a 7-year deal puts him at 35, and maybe for a guy who's not the fastest defenseman, I mean, he's not slow by any means.
He's a pretty fast defenseman.
Well, I mean,
He's pretty quick.
you think so?
I'd say that he's in the top, third of.
Okay,
of
well,
guys with
respect.
speed.
Okay,
Yeah,
I respect that. I don't watch the Maple Leafs as much as you do,
Yeah,
so
I would put him in there. He was probably up there with the Leafs. Maybe probably the best skater, at least. Maybe not the fastest, but the best skater. He's
Okay.
a very good skater.
I will say a team that would look really nice to have him would be the Florida Panthers on a 1-year deal. But
I just don't see him taking a 1-year deal. If he's going to take a 1-year deal, why not just wait until Toronto's Toronto's figured it out and go, look, I'll sign here for one more year. But I don't think he's going to take a 1 year. Like, you're crazy to take a 1 year deal. The money you could make taking a deal somewhere else, go play with your buddy Phil Kessel. They played together in Toronto.
That's true.
I don't know if they liked each other, but they played together in Toronto.
Well, think about this. Arizona's the second highest cap hit in the NHL right now. Not taking into account long-term
really?
IRs, but yeah, the Golden Knights, followed by the Coyotes, and then the Penguins, which is just hysterical to me.
Wow.
Yeah, Coyotes have spent a little bit of money on that back end, because OEL's contract kicked in, so now that, eats up a little bit of cap there, and so, yeah.
I could see the Islanders.
That would be interesting.
They do have the cap space, and they're, they'll probably be able. They could move Johnny Boychuk at some point.
They would have to move somebody, I think, because they've got a lot of good-looking young kids like Taves and Scott Mayfield back there that I think that maybe they're not so high on getting, lowering their ice time per se.
Yeah, you'd have to be able to get rid of Johnny Boychuk.
Yeah, so I think you got to find wiggle room for him somewhere, which would be moving one of those other guys for sure. Another team I could potentially see him get to, which wouldn't be at all shocking, maybe the Anaheim Ducks or
that's where he actually was traded from when he was acquired for. What a trade, man! That was Francois Beauchemin.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
he's got Jake Gardner, and they got Joffrey Lupul. Joffrey Lupul was a pretty darn good player for a little while. He just could never stay healthy. Poor guy. Okay, last unrestricted free agent. Well, a couple more. Cronwall, think he comes back?
He's, I don't know. You can flip a coin on that one.
Yzerman said he's hoping he comes back.
Sure.
So I think if he's going to keep going, it'll be in Detroit. Dion Phaneuf is an interesting one. I can see him. He may be a guy who has to take a
PTO. Yeah,
PTO.
absolutely.
Along with like Cam Ward, he might have to take a PTO. Go in somewhere. I guess the rest of the guys on here wouldn't. But
I'll tell you who's one name that it's very interesting to me on the free agent list that hasn't signed yet is Brian Boyle. A guy that I can't see why. Maybe
every team loves him.
Yeah, why wouldn't you want a guy who wins every faceoff, kills penalties like an ace? I mean, he would be a great fourth line guy.
Filler guy though. You can always.
Oh yeah, for
him.
sure.
But I'm surprised that one team hasn't gone. You know what? Anyone in this league is going to give him $1 million.
I would give him 3 years and $2 million a season.
Let's give him 2.
Yeah.
Easy to bury.
Yeah. But I think maybe a lot of teams are probably trying to get him on 1 year because after this season he's 35, and then that 35 plus contract thing is a little different. So who knows?
Which is fine. So you sign him for 1 year, 2.5. If you have if you're a team that has a little bit of space and you're probably not going to be a playoff team, you go 1 year, 2.5. You sign him to it. You probably can get. I mean, what did Nashville get a second round pick for him? They got a second round pick for him, right?
They did.
Or that's what they paid for him,
right?
From New Jersey.
Yeah.
So you got to think this year probably at least get a third round pick for him. So sign him for 2.5, trade him at the deadline, take half his salary. So you basically paid $1.25 million for a third round pick or maybe a second round pick, and you trade him off.
Yeah, as valuable as like a guy like Patrick Maroon was in the playoffs, you got to think teams would be itching to get him in there.
Yeah, that's a great point. The other thing is that Ben Hutton, 26 years old, and there's nobody out there knocking on his door.
This might be a situation because we've seen it with a lot of free agents where they've been signing for lesser money now than I would have expected this season. That maybe might be a case where a lot of these guys are expecting too much money and teams aren't ponying up like they wanted to.
He could go back to Vancouver. He just wasn't given a qualifying offer because I don't think they wanted to give him that 10% raise or whatever it was. So
yeah, something like that.
Could re-sign with them,
and he might.
They've
got room for him.
Yeah, I think they're probably waiting on Besser, and it's just there's a lot of things hanging out there. This has got to be the weirdest offseason.
Once Marner signs, the dominoes fall, and I think everything else just falls in place just within a month.
That's what you think. Yeah, but a month is a long time.
Yeah, it's a long time, but I think, given that we got training camps, in a two months.
I mean, are all these guys going to miss training camp?
No, I don't think everybody.
What it seems like.
I wouldn't be surprised if 1 or 2 of them miss training camp, but not all of them.
That's what it seems like. Okay, shall we fix the NHL now?
Let's fix it because it's broken.
Okay, time to put our hard hats on and go to work. Do you have your top 5? Do you have them ranked in any particular order, or are they just
I do not.
things? Okay, yeah.
I can rank them super quick if you want me to, but no.
I know you came up with like 35 things and you picked 5 of them.
Yeah, something like that.
I picked 5 and I have 5. So that's why don't you throw out your first one, top of the mind. How are we going to fix the National Hockey League?
Okay.
First of all, talk about what's broken and then how you're going to fix it.
What's broken? Okay. I did a couple. I tried to look at things in terms of what I think would improve the overall image of the game, and both what would improve maybe the quality of game we see on the ice, and then again to on and off the ice as well in terms of image. So the first one I think would be, I'm going to throw out a softball one because I think this one would just be hilariously fun to watch, and I think it would be entertaining for everybody, and I think might actually have a long-term effect on the game in terms of players' movement. On the deadline, all the GMs have to meet in one central location to hash out trades. Like they have to sit in a room and talk it out. Like they don't go anywhere.
Basically do GM meetings over the deadline.
Yeah. Basically do one where they just all sit in a room and have to hash out trades. And
let reporters be there.
Absolutely. Put video cameras in there. Let people watch this shit go down. I think it would be awesome and fun to watch.
I love it.
You can have Kyle Dubas on 6 cell phones at once.
That is
going to town.
Yeah, that would be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
You just hear these guys talking. You'd be able to see it all happening.
Get crazy with the have auctioneers up here, just going to town with guys like just screaming out sold, just like with whatever. I don't care. Yes. Just do something to make it entertaining.
I'd watch that. It'd be a lot more entertaining than trade deadline.
Oh my gosh, sitting there just watching that.
Where they're like, all right, let's take
all it is Darren Dreger. Every time you see him stare down at his BlackBerry, you're like, what's going on? What's about to happen? Who's getting traded? Yes. And it's nope, nothing.
No, it was just my mom. Because the trade deadline has kind of lost its luster back when I remember when I was in high school and stuff, tracking that stuff all day, all day in school. And I didn't have a cell phone that was on the internet. None of us did. It's like
actually, I did my senior year,
2004, 3, 4,
2.
They could get on the internet.
Yeah, it was terrible quality. I had this gold flip phone from Verizon. It was the worst thing ever.
Yeah. But so. I would just log on to the computers. Like any chance I got in some classroom, I would you're just keep hitting refresh over and over again. I remember it was like Donald Audette got traded to the Buffalo Sabres from the Atlanta Thrashers.
Goodness.
At the last minute. That was the big one. My best friend in high school was a huge Buffalo Sabres fan. I remember like, dude, he just got down. Good times. Okay, so I love that idea.
Okay, good.
I'm down. Let's do our own version,
dude. Okay.
I wish we could. Okay, my first one is not so much this is a CBA. I am not a big fan of limiting teams on how much they can spend. I think that it's in some ways has helped the league because you've got this quote unquote parity. I think much of what is said about parity is it's a facade. I still think the teams with the money are the teams with the money, and they still have certain advantages. They also are the biggest fan bases. So what happens when these rinky-dink teams make the Stanley Cup Finals? Or like all the big names are out of the playoffs early. It's not necessarily who makes it to the finals. It's about these big name teams and big market teams don't make the playoffs, or they they lose in the first round constantly. And I think there is something to be said about there being a couple teams that are a little better than the rest, or they have some advantages because of money. That is what it is. I mean, the Yankees, they're usually good, but they're not always good. They could still be bad.
Yeah.
They've had some bad seasons. They still missed the playoffs. So do the Red Sox. And the Red Sox have been pretty good.
Well, look, I know. Well, look, you still have teams that have their internal quote unquote caps, so they still don't spend, even though we have this cap. This would be hilarious. Okay, so I can't remember exactly if he was or wasn't, but I'm pretty sure he was. Connor McDavid, he was eligible for an offer sheet, right?
Yeah, if he.
I would assume so because he went right in and started playing. Right, if he hadn't signed that extension with Edmonton,
he signed
right?
an extension, so there was no
right. But say he made it there because he knows teams don't have cap space, and so he's like, okay, granted, yes, I'm going to be the highest paid guy, but what if a team like, for instance, the New York Rangers, right? Because they don't have an internal cap. They could spend.
But then they're giving up 5 first-round draft picks.
Don't give a crap. Who cares? You know how entertaining that would be to see a guy like that get an offer sheet because they don't have there's no cap? Okay, let's go offer Connor McDavid $20 million a season. Edmonton probably doesn't have that kind of money to throw around, but we do.
Daryl Cates, one of the richest people in Canada.
Yeah,
find a way to get it done.
Okay, yeah. So,
but I'm just saying, I agree. There are. I'm not shooting down that thought of like there are definitely some smaller teams. They draft a good player. They could get poached.
Yeah, Canadians could have gave Aho $15 million because they have the money to spend.
That's true. That's true. And also Tom, is it Tom Dundon? Yeah, he's also a freaking billionaire. So
right. Well, he does.
He was
too,
like, "Do you really think I don't have money?"
I know. That just cracks me up.
I want a luxury tax.
Okay.
I want it so if a team wants to spend over the cap, they can. That money goes into the rest of the pool. And frankly, that just makes the league more money. That makes everybody more money. So I think,
if you're profit sharing, absolutely.
Yeah. That means that it's just like baseball. Any team that spends over the cap doesn't get any profit sharing. And whatever they spend, they give an extra $1 into a pool. And then all the teams that didn't spend over the cap all share that pool. So everybody's going to make money off those teams spending more than they need to.
Yeah. I will say, I think, and you might have been a little spoiled by this growing up like I was, but watching Detroit, right? I know you weren't a huge fan, but they spent a crap load of money, and they bought the Stanley Cup in 2002.
Yeah, pretty much.
So,
but you know what? At the same time, the New York Rangers were spending like mad.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And they weren't good at that time. They weren't good at all. I think they missed the playoffs a couple years when they had the highest team salary in the league. So it's not like spending money just automatically says, oh, you're going to make a ton of money. But I do think there should be some level of like, all right, you know what? Especially these guys that, in Tampa Bay, they can just, I'll take $8.5 million because I know I'm going to make the same amount if I were to sign 12 in Toronto.
Right.
Like that puts the certain teams at a disadvantage. So level the playing field in that sense where, hey, there's certain teams should be able to do a luxury tax, or every team should be able to do it.
Right. Seattle's about to score because they don't have state tax.
Yeah.
So they're going to bank on that a little bit, I think.
If you want to spend, you should be able to spend. Maybe you just find a way to... No, I don't even think you find a way to make it reasonable. You just let people spend.
Now, do you eliminate the cap floor at this point, too? You say you can spend as little as you want, then?
I don't think the players would go for it.
Oh, I don't think so either. Because then you're going to get like cheapskate owners.
Yeah,
like in Ottawa, they're like, okay, we want to spend $1 million on every person, and that's it. So
yeah, but then your team would be so bad, no one would go, and you'd get run out of the ground. I think there's
that's the risk you run.
Some limit. Yeah, that's true. I'm not opposed to getting rid of the floor because I think that what the floor does is it just like these stupid things where these teams are dealing for players who they don't play anymore and they're just trying to get to the floor. It's dumb. It's dumb. Just, if a team can't afford to pay, just don't make them. Maybe you'd have a more... I know the salary cap at the time in like 2004 seemed so necessary because all these teams were losing $30 million. If a team's losing $30 million a year and the owner doesn't want to be there anymore, then just say goodbye to the team. I feel like that's what the NBA did. They went, that team isn't making any money, so we're going to move them.
That's why Seattle left.
And they just went, okay, we're moving teams. And they had, it's not great for business to have teams moving all over the place, but maybe they'd find a home with a city that is able to sustain a team. I don't think there's anything wrong with going, you know what? It worked for, like, the Florida Panthers. It hasn't worked really for 30 years. It's been almost 30 years.
Yeah,
it's been 27 years. I think 1982, was their first year, 93.
Something like that.
I think at this point it's fair to say it's just not really working.
Well, might this year.
It's a joke. If you go to those games, it's literally all the other team.
I know. They have to be winning massively in order to fill those seats.
Massively.
So, yeah.
Okay, let's get your second one.
Okay, this one, I'm not sure how it would work out, but I think there would be a great opportunity for the NHL to integrate. My thought process is allow the AHL to allow women to play, because you look at the turmoil right now that the women hockey players are having right now with Canada and all those professional leagues they have, with disparity in terms of pay and all that other stuff. And I think
they don't make as much money,
right? And I think now with
nobody goes to the games.
Exactly.
Do you know that the WNBA? Do you know how much the whole league made last year?
I can't imagine more than a couple $1 million.
$55 million. That's how much the league is worth. I'm sorry. That's how much the league is considered to be worth.
That's crazy.
The whole league.
Nothing.
LeBron James makes $35 million.
Right.
A year. The NBA is worth over $8 billion.
Right. We have some NHL franchises worth $1 billion. I think a couple of them.
Yeah, a couple.
Probably the Rangers in Toronto.
So,
but
I mean, if you're worth $55 million as a league, you're only going to get so much money from
right.
the people that work there.
But okay, so here's my thought process on that.
That's a lot of money that's nothing. Like the women's leagues were basically a donation from.
Right. So the NHL has come out and said that, like, hey, we'll support you, but they legally can't do anything because there's all these contracts and legal, But anyways, so with the game moving the way it is towards like being, less violent, less checking, more speed, more, dangle, I think it would be a great opportunity for a lot of women to, if they allow them to,
they will
maybe
allow a woman. A woman played in the NHL.
Well, I say maybe try to integrate. Yeah, she did in '93, I think, with Tampa, or '94.
Game.
Yeah. So, and then she got shelled.
I think she led in 5 goals.
I know. Yeah. Create an opportunity for women to play in the AHL, and then that opens up the opportunity, if they're good enough, maybe to come up for a game or two and try out the NHL level and see if we can integrate them that way.
Yep.
I know that. I'm
all for it.
Yeah.
I mean, if Haley Wickenheiser is like, she was the best. She was the best. She was good. She was unreal at the time. She actually went and played in a men's league in Sweden. Right?
Something like that.
She did okay, but she was the best woman, and she was barely an average.
Right.
And it's not a knock. It just, bodies are different.
No, it's physicality. It has a lot to do with physicality. And I think there probably will be 1 or 2 women that maybe
freaking cool if there was a
but that's the
woman
thing.
who was that good.
Yeah.
Who was in there. It'd be awesome.
So it'd be fun to see.
If anybody would do it, it'd be Kyle Dubas.
Dude, okay.
He's hired so many.
He has, yeah.
So a lot of women, so he would try it. All right, so women to the NHL. Interesting way to fix it.
Yeah.
I like it.
Outside the box. Give me your second one.
I'm wondering when if at some point there's a catching up, or like a way to, all right, how can we, let's make steroids legal for women so that they can compete with men.
Wow.
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm just spitballing here. My second way to fix the NHL, in the early 90s, there was 20 teams. 16 of them made the playoffs. Here we are, 25 years later, and still 16 teams make the playoffs, but we have 60% more teams. 32. We're about to have 32 teams, and only half of them make the playoffs, as opposed to before 80% of them made the playoffs.
Sure.
Now, I don't think that 80% is too much. If 80% of the teams made the playoffs, there'd be a lot of bad teams. There'd be a lot of bad teams in the playoffs from this past year.
Think about the NFL, though. There's even a less percentage of their teams that make the playoffs.
That's true, but the NFL, it just seems different because it's a one-off.
So, okay.
It's just a one game.
Right. There's no best of, but so you're proposing.
There's also only 16 games.
Well, sure, absolutely, yeah. So you're proposing increase playoffs, the amount of teams. So do you maybe do like the like MLB does, where they have a best of 5 series in the first round? Maybe you throw in something like that, because now by increasing the amount of teams, you're increasing the length of the playoffs and obviously more games for the players.
Yeah, I'm thinking you just have like a one game play-in.
Okay.
Now, if you increase the playoffs to 80%, like it was in 1992, the Oilers, the Ducks, the Canucks, the Flyers, they all would have made the playoffs. The Blackhawks, all those teams would have made the playoffs. I think it would only be like six or seven teams would miss the playoffs right now if you had that. So yeah, so Anaheim would have made it, and Edmonton would have made it. The Rangers would have been just a couple points back of the playoffs. Just funny to think about.
Interesting.
No, we don't want that. Yeah, so I'm just thinking, like this past year, Montreal was a good team.
Sure.
They were, I'd say they were right there with Carolina most of the year. They had what was going on. The Florida Panthers would be the other team that would make it. You could make an argument that they didn't really deserve to be there. Like there was a big disparity, I think, this year in the East and really in the West. This year is maybe not the best year to look at it.
No, but last year though, the year before that.
But the year before, when it's very close, it makes you go, oh man, like the Florida Panthers, they missed the playoffs by a point. And then in the West, there was a couple. Dallas and St. Louis only missed it by 3. It would have been interesting maybe to expand it or just reformat it.
Yeah.
Find a way to totally reformat it. I actually think that you could do it probably should go back to more of a 1-8, 2-7, reseed it. Like make it easier for those top teams to make it through. Like there should be a reward. Right now, it doesn't feel like there's a reward for being one of the top teams. And that's another reason, like, if you're a wild card team, I know, this year it doesn't really seem like the Florida Panthers deserve to make the playoffs based on the system we have, of course. But, A, would they have played differently down the stretch knowing that there was a chance they could make the playoffs? What would that do to these teams playing in, would Philadelphia have gone 2-8 in their last 10 games knowing there's still a chance that they could make the playoffs? Maybe not. Maybe they, find some gusto, but at the end, if you go, we're 13 points out of the playoffs, we're done. Who cares?
Well, more to your point too. Now you give an opportunity for guys like, for example, Connor McDavid, the best player in the world, not being in the playoffs.
Yeah. Yep.
You find a way for him to get in there, even if it is only for a couple games.
Yep.
So, I like that.
And I think you just do a one. It's just like baseball, a one-off.
Yeah.
You just make it this winner.
It would be interesting.
Winner take all, and then that team plays the top team. And what that does too is it makes it so that top team does have an advantage because the team that they're playing against, they've just gone into a war of a one-game playoff.
I was going to say, it would be just super entertaining.
Now they got to start playing this 7-game series against one of the best teams. And I just don't think you want to have your top seeds eliminated in the first round very often.
No, I don't.
It's not a good thing. So, anyways, reformat the playoffs, add some teams, make it a one-game playoff. That's my fix.
Okay, I did have a thought about that whole reformatting the playoff thing, which kind of goes into my next one. I think if we're going to reformat, add a wild card, I think one way to fix the NHL would be to shorten the NHL season. I think maybe 72, 74 games, I think.
The NBA's talking about this.
Yeah, I know a lot of teams, they worry about revenue more than anything else when it comes to this, right? The owners do anyways.
Yeah.
From a player's side, it's more or less the injury, the fatigue that comes with playing these 82 games. And, now you've seen these battles for these last wild card spots now where guys don't get to rest because they're like, no, we got to hold on to the freaking, or even like those number 2, 3 battles.
Right.
Now you got to play guys where you could maybe rest them a little bit and then come playoff time, right? I'd rather see these guys a little bit more healthy come playoff time and then see the best hockey they can produce versus having guys that are playing with, broken ribs because, they had to go a little harder the last few games and whatever. And from an economic standpoint, 14 teams in the NHL last season averaged 100% capacity. So it's not about the owners are missing out on revenue because they're making it like a lot of these teams are.
Yeah, but what about the teams that aren't?
Sure. Well,
that's more.
There's that argument.
More teams than more teams than not are not selling out all their games.
No, absolutely not. I agree, but I think with only, okay, so say you take 8 games off, that's only 4 games, and you got to think,
4 games is really 2 home games.
No. I think if you do take off 8 games, you're missing 4 home games, right? And maybe you're missing out on $10 million of revenue, maybe for a team.
Yeah, probably not even that much.
So yeah, it's
I don't think they make that
big
much
whoop.
more.
So
that's probably big whoop, $10 million.
Sure, no, I get that.
Depending on the team, yeah, they might. But there has to be a way to figure out how to make those games more meaningful.
Sure.
And now, you take away some of those games, but maybe you charge more because there's less game. There's there's supply and demand. You make less games, there's more of a demand, so you can raise the ticket prices.
Add $3-5 on each ticket, and there you go.
And you can probably make it up. Interesting. Yeah, the fact that the NBA is considering that, and the NBA definitely isn't as physically demanding as the NHL. The fact that they're considering it should cause the NHL to pause. My third one is, again, something with the CBA. I think the best possible scenario is to eliminate the entry-level contract.
Really?
Goodbye, entry-level. Hello. Like, hi, I'm Connor McDavid, and I'm coming into the league, and I want my money now.
Jack Hughes comes in and signs for $6 million a season.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I want my six year, for the first 3 years. Don't give it this like crazy advantage, or sign them to, hey, that kid wants an 8-year deal but has never played a game in the league, and you think they're going to be really good. Yeah, we'll give you 8 years for $5 million, or we'll give you 5 years for $5 million. You make it so that maybe that actually ends up benefiting an owner who goes, well, you've never played a game before. Like, what do you want? I think that you're better off these smaller deals or the entry-level deals going away and making it up to that player, the owner, the team to go, all right, how much are we valuing this brand new player right now? And I think that you may see less of these RFA struggles later on because these guys are already getting paid. Like, I know they're getting bonus. Some of these guys are getting real good bonuses.
Right, where I think Jack Hughes, you can make up to like 3 point something million.
3 million. Yeah, but make it so that their base is $3 million and they can get another $3 million in bonuses. Like, bonus them out in a different way. Suddenly these guys, these guys are the lifestyle that you're being dropped into isn't one where making $700,000 a year is helpful, I guess. But I just think that it could eliminate some of these tensions later on because they're already getting money. Like, these guys coming out of here, they're like, I just made, and the guys who, like Kyle Connor, or, guys who weren't making as much money in their, or had full bonuses in their ELC, they're going, well, now I'm really getting paid because I haven't gotten any money. So then they really want to get paid. They feel like they have to. Well, what if that guy had been making, $5 million for their first few years? Now they're not as like, oh, it's detrimental that I get my money. Like, if they're good, some of these guys, their best years are when they're like 20 years old.
Right.
Some of their most productive years, and I don't think you should just get them for free. I think you should pay, and it would create less problems later on. But I think that's where you also have to have a luxury tax. You have to make it so that those guys.
Yeah, I was going to say on the flip side, because you get teams like, for instance, Chicago, who relied heavily on a lot of those entry-level contracts to try to be successful when they were strapped against the cap and they were dishing pieces. You need that. So.
Yep, you need that, or you don't. You can also go, no, we're not going to give you that, and you could get into these battles with a guy who's 18 years old who has really no leverage.
No leverage, yeah.
And you make it so they can't get offer sheeted or anything. They can sit there and wait for 3 years and not,
Right.
But okay. I just think the entry level contract is cheap.
I respect it. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, your fourth.
My fourth. This is just more or less a personal wish, maybe. Splitting up the original six again. Don't get me wrong, I love the Toronto Red Wing battle in the East, but I hate that everybody's in the East right now. I understand the travel of it. I understand.
Chicago in the East.
Okay, then you put all six in the East. Technically, I guess you could
they just
make that argument, but
they just are in the East. There's nothing you can do about it.
I understand that, but I just think it would just be more entertaining for
if Detroit went back to the West.
Yeah, if Detroit went back to the West, or even if Toronto went back to the West, just to see these teams a lot more. I think there's just for me it's a nostalgia maybe. I don't know.
I don't think you're going to convince anybody.
No, I don't think so either. But like I said, travel is the biggest issue.
Well, and now you've got Seattle in there too. Although I feel like travel isn't as big of a deal now. Like maybe 25 years ago, travel was a little harder. I feel like travel.
Well, yeah, because everybody's got their own private jets now to fly these players out.
And you're like, you've got a cell phone. You can do everything you want on it. You can I'm sure on some of these private jets, you have an ability to make phone calls. Like
absolutely.
You want to do. I would agree that there could be some restructuring of divisions and conferences.
Yeah.
I think it would be. It's almost like just a way to shake it up.
Just put them all in a hat, shuffle it up, and just pull them out, and what you get is what you get.
I've always been of the side that it should be more like baseball, where it's like, okay, yes, a division is all these teams really close to each other, but then as a conference, you have we have each conference has a division.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, like,
a
you got the
division with
Mets
East
on one
West.
and the Yankees on another conference, you know.
Yeah, there's that, but I'm thinking more like, okay, so you have something like a New York, and Pittsburgh and New Jersey and like those New York teams.
Right.
But then you make them in a division or in a conference with Dallas, Chicago, St. Louis, and you have maybe three
And
divisions,
Winnipeg or something,
Three
yeah.
divisions I mean, once you have 32 teams, I mean, like the NFL, you can go four teams
Yeah,
in
that
the
would be
division
interesting.
times 8, and then you have your, maybe a West Coast conference, like West Coast division and an East Coast division in the same conference. So they're still only playing each other maybe an extra time each year. But I think it makes it more interesting come playoff time too. You'd start to have these playoff matchups that are always the same. I know the league likes rivalries, and I like different matchups.
I do too.
I want to see what happens
Oh my
when
gosh, I love it.
Carolina plays the Dallas Stars in a random playoff matchup.
Yeah.
I want to see what happens. The Detroit Red Wings make it back to the playoffs, but they have to play not the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Right.
This Detroit's different because they were in the West and the East
Yeah.
pretty recently, but you catch my drift.
You're fourth.
My fourth. I don't want to cap on the amount of years that you can sign a player.
Really?
I don't
Go
think
back
that
to those
I don't
14-year
think that it
contracts?
should be there. I think if you want to sign a guy to a 14-year deal, you should be able to do it. And however, I don't think that you should. Like I think you're just strapped for it. The guy can't just retire. Like if
Can't
you
pull
want
a
to sign him to
Kovalchuk
those
and-
massive deals, you can do it. Like if they wanted to sign Connor McDavid to a 15-year deal, they should be able to do it. But why would he want to sign that? I don't know. Like in baseball, Mike Trout signed his 12-year, $480 million deal. I think he gets paid $38 million a year. for the next
Ridiculous
12
amount of
years.
money.
We actually calculated it all one time, and it was like, all right, per day, he makes like $97,000. Remember, he's obviously not working every day.
Yeah.
And if he works hourly, he's making like, and we'll say he works 8 hours a day or 10 hours a day. It was like he's making $12,000 an hour. Or
That's crazy to me. Crazy.
$12,000 an hour, nuts. But yeah, I just think that those, again, I'm looking for a way to make the league more interesting, and I think the way to make it more interesting is that, like, if you want to give a guy who's 35 a 10-year deal, that's fine, but it should count against your cap the whole time. If you're stupid like that, you're stupid like that.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I actually had one on my list here that I wasn't going to plan on talking about, but I actually had one where it was just limiting contracts to maybe 4 or 5 years at most.
Oh, 4 or 5.
Yeah.
Oh, now, see, I have an extra one. I'll just throw out my fifth.
Do it.
Players over the age of 35 no longer count against the cap.
Wow. Okay.
So you could
That's
go
interesting.
So you could go sign a guy like Joe Thornton, and you could pay him what he actually
$10 million
what
if
he's
you wanted
actually
to.
worth.
Sure.
Like you could pay him he's probably still worth about $4 million, but a team would probably pay him $6 million because of what he could do in that locker room. A team would probably pay Patrick Marleau $4-5 million just because of what he's worth in that locker room. The Leafs would have kept him because they would want to keep him around because he's over 35. He wouldn't count against the cap. Those veteran players could keep making their money.
And they got younger guys who need to stay at his house. So
you make them not count against the cap, and you also make them not count towards, like, somehow you make it so that it's not counting towards the, whatever it is. Like there's the 50-50 amount, like 50% goes to the players, 50% goes to the owners. I don't know. You'd have to work out something because the cap is based on that. But I think that you make it so that players over the age of 35 are in their own pool, and there's no cap on how much you can pay them. There's no cap on how long you can sign them for. It doesn't count against your cap, but you have to keep paying them. You can't just, or you could buy them. I guess you could make some sort of buyout for them, but you would make certain teams sign a lot of veteran players.
Yeah.
But you'd have these differently constructed teams. You wouldn't have teams that are built solely on like 26-year-olds. You could have some teams that would go, you know what? Yeah, we're going to pay a bunch of these veterans, and we're going to see if we can't make a make a team out of this for a minute.
Wow. Okay. Interesting. That would be interesting because, yeah, I mean, you're shelling out so much money to these younger guys. A lot of times you get these older guys who just get forgotten about.
They don't get paid, and it's not because they're not necessarily worth it. It's because they just can't. Like they
can't afford it anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Interesting. Okay. I don't mind that one so much.
Or maybe you go like they're only worth like if you pay them 5, you're only 50% against
2.5
the cap
on
or
the
something
cap.
like
that. Okay. All right. So my fifth one, one of the ones I had on my list was introduce the red line back to the NHL. But thinking about that a little bit more, I thought it would be more fun because the NHL is looking to increase goal scoring to remove both blue lines, and now you have a roller hockey style game where you can just be anywhere on the ice at any time.
So you basically eliminate all the zones.
Yes. So now you can have guys sitting at the top of the circle at the other end, and if you have a defenseman like Carlson who can stretch past that good, boom, now you've got a guy who potentially is wide open to have a breakaway. Or you have a guy who maybe is running down the boards, however fast, he's skating past everybody, but now he's got to worry about Slowpoke over here catching up to him on the blue line, or not being ahead of the play.
You never ask.
You don't have to worry about it.
Essentially, you want to eliminate offside.
Basically, yeah.
Say goodbye to offside.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think the purists.
No, I don't think so either. But
what would the game look like if you had that high level skill with? Would you eliminate icing too? You can just fire it down the ice.
No, I still like icing.
It's like arena football rules for hockey.
Yeah, I do hate when teams have the ability to dump the puck down. I mean, once or twice is fine, but when you start I've seen teams sometimes they'll do it 4 or 5 times in a row because that's how they get their break. They know they can just dump it, especially when you're on a poor team that can't win, faceoffs. But I think it would definitely increase goal scoring. That's for sure, and that's what the NHL wants.
Yeah, I just feel like that maybe changes the way the whole game's played.
Oh, sure it does. Now you have to keep a defenseman maybe back. Guys can't pinch up as much anymore. Now you got to strategize a little bit differently depending on if you have a team that likes to sit back or a team that throws 5 guys down like as far as they can go.
It's almost like CFL, NFL rules.
A little bit, yeah.
Like hey, let's eliminate it down and make the field longer.
Right.
Or wider. That would definitely change it. I don't think that there's something that feels wrong about it.
It just feels wrong. I understand when you say the hockey purist and even it felt wrong when I thought about it initially, but but more and more I thought about it, I'm like, well, that would do what they want, increase scoring. So,
well, I mean, you could also put in soccer nets, and it would increase scoring too. But
absolutely,
it be as entertaining.
Sure.
Would it be as
now you're just getting ridiculous.
I do think that there is some level. There's something that has to change when you think about the speed of the game, and like there's got to be something that eventually changes. Of course, you've got people like Eric Lindros running around saying like body checking should be completely eliminated from the game.
Well,
open ice hitting should be completely eliminated. I think it'll probably just get diminished on its own over time. You don't really have to worry about it. I mean, how much open ice hitting really is there?
There's not a ton, but maybe you just increase like fines and penalties a lot more to where they really should be for blindside checking.
I mean,
and stuff
I can
like
see
that.
fighting being gone at some point. Where they go, oh, we don't want fighting anymore, so we're going to make it a game misconduct for fighting instead of a fighting major.
Right.
And frankly, I am opposed, but not that strongly. Like, I don't think I'd put up much of a fight if you were like, yeah, I mean, if a guy wants to fight, sure, they can definitely go fight, but they're getting a 10-minute game misconduct.
Yeah, I'm still okay with fighting and checking a little bit because, one, I like to watch it, but two, I think still the players need to have the ability to police the ice a little bit more, I still think.
But in the NFL, the players don't have the ability to police the field themselves, and it's just as, if not more physical than hockey.
Well, I'm not disagreeing with you.
I think it's just built into the DNA of people that play hockey that, like, we get to fight to control this. When really, maybe if you just... I get it, the NFL, the guys don't have sticks, but maybe if you just weren't a freaking idiot with your stick. Like, when you play... Like, when you actually go out there and play, and you see what some people do with their sticks when they get mad, and you're like, are you freaking kidding me? Like, just just kick that guy. Goodbye. You're completely done. You never get to play here again. Like, everywhere you go, your name should be on a list that says, like, screw this guy. He's the worst. He uses a stick like a freaking chainsaw. And so, goodbye. He can't play hockey.
Yeah, Brad Marchand wouldn't be able to play anymore.
It shouldn't be that hard. Like, why is it that all of a sudden we put a stick in someone's hand and they think it's a freaking sword?
Well, I do every time.
No.
Every time I pick up my broom, I think it's a lightsaber.
Yeah.
Every time I put a towel on, I think I'm a Jedi. So
A towel?
over the head, you know? You ever do that? Maybe I'm alone in that. I get out of the shower and I go to dry off my hair, and my towel sits over the head, over the shoulders.
Oh, okay. Yeah. You're like I was thinking like a turban.
Oh, goodness, no.
It's like, are you Aladdin now? Or
like when my fiance dries her hair kind of thing?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Exactly.
No,
Exactly.
not at all.
Well, NHL, you are fixed. Just follow all of us, and you'll have a better league.
Or maybe I broke it a little bit, just opening things up, but I don't care.
You broke it. Yeah, you broke it. I think that between the two of us, well, the CBA is fixed. At very least,
CBA's fixed, trade
got that
deadline's
way.
fixed.
I mean, you can just pay old players as much as you want.
There you go.
I feel like there's something to it. But if you have something that you want to fix the league with, you have some ideas, we'll pass it along to Gary, and he is always taking new suggestions.
He's always taking my calls.
He loves our suggestions.
He does. He really does.
Remember when that little trapezoid behind the net? All us. Eliminating the red line. It's surprising that you're saying that you want to put it back, because you were the one who came up with the idea to eliminate it in the first place. So, I know the goalies weren't happy with you when you said that their pad should be smaller, but
No, they really weren't. And I'm a goalie.
they
It
listened.
just was not
They
wise.
listened. You can hit us on Twitter at OT Hockey Talk. That is the letter O, not a 0. Some people say O when they say 0.
I've done that once
My
or
dad
twice.
does that. He's like 0134 or something. I'm like, you mean 0? Yeah, 0.
When I write out zeros, I put the little slash through it.
No, do you? You're
Yes.
professional.
Yeah, some people think it's weird.
Because you're an HR master.
I still put the cross through the 7, like a T kind of thing.
I like I like doing the like the half T.
Yeah.
Without the I just like the way that looks. It just makes me happy.
It does look
It's like
good.
a hammer or something, a hook and a hammer. I don't know.
Okay.
Almost like a wrench.
I just think of Foo Fighters every time I do that because it looks like they're...
Perfect. On that note, we will talk to you guys as news comes in. We will be here all summer. We'll talk to you guys soon.